They always made it clear I was the spare. The afterthought. The one who somehow disrupted the perfect picture my family painted around my older sister, Vanessa. Growing up, I existed in her shadow. She was loud, confident, golden. I was quieter, more thoughtful. I read books instead of performing cartwheels in the living room. And because of that, I was labeled too sensitive, too serious, or my favorite, just not like Vanessa. Every award I brought home was met with a shrug. Every praise from a teacher, brushed off. Meanwhile, Vanessa could breathe and get applause. She'd fail a test and still be told she was gifted. I'd get straight A's and hear, "That's what you're supposed to do." My mother always defended it as, "We just need to support Vanessa more, she's not as steady as you." But what she really meant was, Vanessa was more valuable, and I'd better learn to be okay with the scraps. Even as adults, nothing changed. Vanessa became a mother shortly after me. When I had my daughter, Lila, I was over the moon. She was the softest, sweetest little thing, with big brown eyes and a curious nature. And yet, before Lila could even say her first word, I heard it, "Well, I'm sure she's cute, Zoe, but have you seen how advanced Lucas is? He's walking already." Lucas. Vanessa's son. The golden child of the golden child. From that moment on, Lila didn't stand a chance. Every time we visited my parents, it was the same routine. Lucas got paraded around like royalty. Every crayon drawing was hung up. Every new word was a miracle. Every tantrum? He's just passionate. Lila? She was quiet, like me. Observant. Thoughtful. "She's a bit behind, isn't she?" My mother whispered to me once. "Maybe look into a speech therapist." She was 1.5. When Lila won a regional art contest at school, I texted the family group chat a picture of her holding her ribbon. My mom responded with a thumbs up. Vanessa chimed in with cute. Lucas has a chess tournament next week, he's the youngest in his age group. I stared at my phone, heart sinking, realizing for the 100th time that nothing I, or my daughter, did would ever be enough for them. And yet, I stayed polite. I kept showing up. I kept hoping they'd see Lila for who she was. That they'd see me. But the truth was, they didn't want to see us. They wanted a mirror of themselves. And we didn't fit. I should have known better than to let them talk me into hosting. It was Lila's 7th birthday, and I wanted something quiet, just a few friends, maybe a cozy backyard setup. But my mother had other plans. "You have to invite the family," she said, already drafting a guest list. "It would be rude not to." And Vanessa said Lucas has something he wants to show everyone. Right. God forbid Lucas miss a spotlight. Still, I caved. Maybe, just maybe, they'd make it about Lila this time. Maybe they'd see how kind she was, how thoughtful. How she'd spent hours making handmade thank you cards for each guest before the party even started. They didn't. From the moment Vanessa walked in with Lucas in his little sweater vest and gifted child tote bag, the energy shifted. Suddenly it wasn't Lila's birthday, it was Lucas' casual exhibition. He gave an impromptu piano performance on the small keyboard we had for Lila. My parents clapped like he was Mozart reincarnated. Lila, quietly watching from the corner with her birthday crown slipping over her eyes, smiled politely. Not one of them noticed her face fall. Later, when we were cutting the cake, my mom leaned in and whispered, "Maybe you should put Lucas on the school application instead of Lila for that art scholarship. He's very multi-talented, and you don't want her getting crushed if she's not selected." I froze. What, this was my daughter's birthday? Her moment. And my mother was already imagining how to swap her out, like she was just a placeholder. I remember staring at the pink and purple frosting on the cake, Lila's favorite, and feeling something snap inside me. Not loudly. Not violently. Just. Finally. I got through the party with a frozen smile, making sure Lila never noticed the storm brewing inside me. I held it together while she blew out her candles, opened her gifts, and gave every guest a handmade thank you card with glitter and stickers she had picked out herself. But once everyone left, once the silence returned, I sat on the kitchen floor and cried. Not for me. For her. For the way they dismissed her, minimized her, the same way they did to me. I had spent my entire life hoping my parents would love me the way they loved Vanessa. And now I was watching them do the same to Lila. That was the moment it clicked. They weren't going to change. They didn't care how kind, bright, or special Lila was, because she didn't fit their mold. Just like I never did. And I wasn't going to let that poison drip into my daughter's heart the way it had into mine. I promised myself something that night. As I sat there with glitter in my hair and tears on my cheeks, Lila would never feel like she had to earn their love. She already had mine. And that would be enough. From that point on, everything began to shift. Pulling away from your own family feels unnatural at first. Like you're betraying some sacred duty you never agreed to but were still expected to uphold. I didn't make any loud declarations. No explosive arguments. No dramatic walkouts. I just stopped. Stopped texting them about Lila's milestones. Stopped inviting them to things they barely acknowledged anyway. Stopped volunteering information they only used to compare or criticize. The silence on their end said everything. It wasn't outrage or confusion. Just an eerie indifference, as though my absence didn't disrupt the family's rhythm at all. Because I was never part of the rhythm to begin with. I was background noise to their Vanessa show. Layla noticed, of course. Why isn't Grandma coming anymore? She asked one evening as we decorated cookies together. I paused, carefully placing a gumdrop on the frosting before answering. She's busy, I said softly. And sometimes, when people don't treat us kindly, we give them space. Lila tilted her head. Like a timeout? I smiled at her simplicity. Exactly. I watched her digest that. Then she went back to her cookie, humming a song she made up. No tears. No heartbreak. Just acceptance. It was working. As the months passed, a strange thing happened. I started to breathe easier. Without their voices in my ear, I could finally hear my own. And more importantly, I could hear Lila's. I saw how she flourished when she wasn't being compared. She painted more. Read aloud in silly voices. Invented little dances in our living room. Her confidence bloomed like a wildflower the second she wasn't trampled by someone else's spotlight. I used to second-guess every parenting choice I made. Now, I trusted my instincts. I enrolled her in an art mentorship program. The same one my mom had tried to talk me out of. And Lila? She thrived. One evening, after an exhibit where Lila's piece had been featured front and center, I posted a photo of her beaming beside her painting. I didn't tag anyone. Just posted it for the world, and for me. Within an hour, Vanessa liked the photo. Then, a message from my mom popped up. Why didn't you tell us about the event? We would have come. I stared at that message for a long time. Not because I believed it. But because I didn't feel the need to believe it anymore. They weren't asking out of love. They were asking because, for the first time, they were being left out. And for the first time in my life, I didn't care. It started with a letter in the mail. A thick envelope with Lila's name printed in elegant calligraphy. She had been selected for the National Young Artist Scholarship, the youngest recipient in the program's history. I remember standing there in the kitchen, hands shaking as I read the letter out loud. Lila's eyes grew wide, then wider, and then she screamed, a joyful, bubbling sound that echoed off the walls. We jumped. We danced. We cried. It was her moment. And for once, it was undeniably hers. The news spread fast, faster than I anticipated. Lila's art mentor posted about it. Her school newsletter featured her on the front page. And soon, I was getting messages from parents, educators, even gallery owners asking to meet her. And then, my family noticed. A text from Vanessa came first. Wow. So Lila really got that scholarship? Didn't realize they even considered kids that young. Followed by my mother, you should have told us. This is a big deal. The whole family should be celebrating. Right. The family that barely blinked when Lila learned to read at 4. That scoffed at her painting ribbons. That once suggested we replace her application with Lucas. Speaking of Lucas. Things had changed. At our last forced family event months prior, he'd been moody and loud. Vanessa had brushed it off, saying he was just creative and misunderstood. But the whispers from other relatives painted a different picture. Lucas was acting out in school. Disrespecting teachers. Falling behind academically. And worse, Vanessa refused to acknowledge it, choosing instead to spin excuses. He's too gifted. That's the issue. The school doesn't challenge him enough. But it wasn't the school. Lucas had grown up hearing that he was the center of the universe. The smartest, the most talented, the best. And now that reality wasn't matching up, he was spiraling. And suddenly, all eyes turned to me. Not for praise. Not for Lila's incredible success. But for help. Zoe, my mom said one afternoon, after unexpectedly showing up at our doorstep. We were thinking. Maybe you could guide Vanessa a little. Maybe Lila could help Lucas get back on track. I stared at her like she'd lost her mind. You want Lila, your granddaughter, who you've never supported, to tutor Lucas? After you spent years dismissing her? My mom had the audacity to sigh. You're being dramatic. We're family. We help each other. I laughed. A short, bitter sound. Oh, so now we're family? When you needed someone to praise, it was Lucas. When Lila won her first ribbon, you shrugged. When she painted something for you, you left it in the car. But now that your golden boy is floundering, you remember we exist? Vanessa joined in on cue. I know I've been tough on you, she said, her voice too sweet. But we're sisters. I'm asking you woman to woman. Just give us some tips. You clearly figured something out with Lila. No apologies. No acknowledgement of years of favoritism. Just manipulation cloaked in faux humility. I looked them both in the eye. You didn't want to help Lila rise. Don't ask her to rescue the boy you raised to believe he was the only star in the sky. And with that, I closed the door. Behind me, Lila peeked from around the corner. Was that Grandma? Yeah, I said, kneeling in front of her. She wanted us to help Lucas with school. Lila tilted her head. But they don't like me. I wrapped my arms around her. They don't know how to like someone like you. Someone kind and bright and real. And that's their loss. That night, Lila and I painted side by side on the balcony. No pressure. No comparison. Just joy. And for the first time in my life, I was grateful they treated us the way they did. Because if they hadn't, I might have never had the strength to build this beautiful life outside of their approval. It had been months since I last saw or heard from my family, and honestly, I had no intention of breaking the silence. Lila and I had found our rhythm, our peace. And I was done bending over backward for people who would never see me for who I truly was. People who thought their love came with conditions. People who couldn't even pretend to love my daughter. But of course, Vanessa wasn't done. It started with a phone call. A desperate one. I was in the kitchen, pulling out a tray of homemade cookies when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. It was Vanessa. I ignored it. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed again. A text this time. Zoe, we need to talk. Lucas is failing. He's spiraling, and we don't know what to do. We need your help. Please. This isn't about Lila, it's about family. I let the words sink in. The message was a mix of desperation and guilt. The kind you send when you're cornered, when you know you've exhausted every other option, and now, the only place left to turn is to someone you've abused for years. Someone who you've hurt and ignored until you needed them. But I wasn't going to respond. Not like this. A day passed. Then 2. Then a week. And then. They came to my door. I wasn't expecting them. I didn't know what they wanted from me. I certainly didn't know how far they'd gone to make their demands sound more urgent than they actually were. But when I opened the door, Vanessa and my mother stood there, faces pinched with fake concern, Lucas trailing behind them, sulking like a shadow. Can we come in? My mom asked. Already stepping past me before I could even respond. I wanted to shut the door. To send them packing. But I didn't. I couldn't. Not yet. I stepped aside, allowing them in, but I kept my distance. I could already feel the tension building. Vanessa immediately took a seat at the kitchen table, glancing around the room with that calculating look in her eyes. She always had this way of assessing everything, as though she was deciding whether to accept it or discard it based on her own narrow standards. I know we haven't been perfect, she began. Her voice dripping with insincerity. But you are family, Zoe. You've always been so supportive of Lila, and we're just asking you to do the same for Lucas. I stared at her. You didn't ask me to help Lila. You never have. But you want me to help Lucas? Lucas crossed his arms, scowling as if he were a teenager trying to rebel. Maybe if you actually helped me instead of constantly babysitting your little princess. Enough, Lucas, I snapped, my patience starting to unravel. You're not a child anymore. You don't get to talk about my daughter like that. I turned to Vanessa and my mother, who were now both trying to look innocent. But their guilt was glaringly obvious. We need you to step in, Vanessa continued, now pleading. Lila can help Lucas. You're teaching her all the right things, the things he needs. She's smarter than he is, Zoe. She could save him. You have to get her to help. No, I said firmly, crossing my arms. I won't put Lila in the middle of this. She's not some tool you can use to fix your problems. She's 7 years old. She deserves a childhood, not to be burdened by your failures. Vanessa opened her mouth to argue, but I raised my hand to stop her. You didn't want me to help Lila when she was younger. You made sure I knew how unspecial she was in your eyes. But now you expect her to clean up your mess with Lucas? That's not how this works. I don't think you understand, my mom chimed in, her voice more defensive than I had ever heard it. Lucas is a gifted child. He needs support. He needs structure. And if you just help him, no, I repeated, my voice colder now. You've spent his whole life telling him he's special, telling him he's better than everyone. But now he's failing, and you want me to fix it? You've enabled him, and you've enabled yourself. And I'm done being your solution. The silence in the room was deafening. Vanessa tried to maintain her composure, but I could see the cracks forming. The smugness that used to cover her insecurities had melted away, leaving her vulnerable and exposed. And you, I added, turning to Lucas, you're not a child anymore. You're a teenager. And you'll never get anywhere if you don't start taking responsibility for your actions. I'm not going to do it for you. He slouched further in his chair, his anger palpable, but there was no fire in his eyes. Just that empty, childish resentment. You really think you're better than me? He muttered under his breath. No, Lucas, I replied calmly. I think you're better than this. But you have to start acting like it. With that, I turned to my mom. I'm done, Mom. I'm done trying to please you. I'm done trying to be the good daughter when you've treated me like this my entire life. And I'm sure as hell not going to let you do this to my daughter." Vanessa and my mom exchanged a look. I saw the realization hit them at the same time. The thing is, they never expected me to push back. They never thought I would finally find my voice. And now, it was too late for apologies. "Well," my mom said, getting up from her seat with a huff. "I guess this is how it's going to be." Vanessa stood too, her eyes now narrowed with resentment. "You've changed, Zoe. And not in a good way. You used to be family. You used to care." "I still care about Lila," I said, my tone unwavering. "And that's all that matters now." As they left, I could feel the weight of their disappointment crushing the air between us. But I didn't feel guilty. For the first time in my life, I felt liberated. I wasn't going to carry their baggage anymore. I wasn't going to be the one they called when their perfect little world cracked. Lila and I? We were going to thrive without them.